While Washington debates tariffs and trade policy, something is quietly happening across the northern border that should make every car buyer in America stop and think. Canada struck a deal with China, and this wasn't just about cheaper imports. It was an entire category collapse. The very definition of what a car should cost and what it should deliver at that price just changed. 5 high-end super cheap electric vehicles available to Canadians right now, built in China. And not one of them fits the story American manufacturers have been telling you about where the industry stands. Let's start with the one that completely changes what a luxury sedan is supposed to cost. The BYD Yangwang U7. $90,000 to $100,000. There's a number attached to this car that takes a moment to process. The Yangwang U7 produces 1,300 horsepower. It reaches 60 miles per hour in 2.9 seconds. It has the lowest aerodynamic drag coefficient of any production sedan on the planet right now. And it starts below $100,000. Sit with that for a second. A Porsche Taycan Turbo GT will cost you $230,000. A Lucid Air Sapphire is pushing $250,000. Neither of them touches what BYD engineered into this chassis. The U7 runs 4 motors, one at each corner, on what they call the E4 platform. The result is a car that can execute a full 360-degree rotation in place. No radius, no arc. Just a pivot, like a military vehicle in a civilian suit. The front carries C-shaped LED headlights that look less like lighting and more like a warning. Real carbon fiber ducts behind the front wheels generate actual aerodynamic load, not the decorative trim that gets glued to American performance cars to suggest a sportiness that isn't there. Inside, red leather and carbon fiber frame a 4-screen cockpit. Rear passengers get individual tablets for climate, audio, and seat massage. The cabin is spacious in a way sports sedans usually sacrifice. The rear seats have room that most executive cars don't offer at twice the price. What makes this particular car matter beyond the specs is where it came from. BYD began as a battery manufacturer, not an automotive legacy brand, not a company with decades of chassis development, a battery company that decided to understand the entire vehicle from the ground up and then build it better. The U7 isn't a copy of German engineering, it's a rejection of it. The Zeekr 001, $37,000. This is where the math stops making sense. The base Zeekr 001 starts at $37,000. That price, in America, buys you a mid-trim family SUV with a plastic-heavy interior and a 0 to 60 time that's closer to a city bus than a sports car. The top-spec 001 produces over 1,000 horsepower and clears 60 miles per hour in approximately 2 seconds. A figure that belongs on a supercar invoice, not a family wagon. The charging architecture alone deserves its own conversation. The 001 runs an 800-volt electrical system and replenishes from 10 to 80% charge in 11 minutes. 11. The average American EV charging experience involves finding a working stall, waiting for a software handshake, and spending the better part of an hour hoping the session doesn't time out. China decided that wasn't acceptable and engineered around it. Frameless doors open automatically when you press a button and close themselves once you're seated. The kind of feature that costs extra on a Rolls-Royce. The interior runs premium materials throughout, with no visible cost cutting. A 15-inch screen swivels toward the driver or passenger depending on who needs it. A Yamaha audio system vibrates through the seats, not just around them. Front and rear passengers both get heating, cooling, and massage. The panoramic roof incorporates ambient star lighting. The rear spans the full width in a light bar with visible depth and texture. The wagon silhouette means the load area is genuinely large, not a compromised hatchback. And the performance version adds a carbon fiber roof spoiler that produces measurable downforce. Functional, not decorative. At this price, American manufacturers don't have an answer, because they've never had to build one. The Avatar 12, $42,000. Remove everything you think you know about what a car needs. The Avatar 12 has no rear window. That isn't a design quirk or a niche specification. It's a deliberate architectural decision. Where glass would normally sit, cameras transmit a live feed to a screen inside. The rearward view is wider, clearer in low light, and unaffected by rain, fog, or glare. Whether you trust it is a different question. The point is that Avatar asked whether the rear window was actually necessary and concluded it wasn't. The exterior mirrors are gone too, replaced with compact camera housings that cut aerodynamic drag and wind noise simultaneously. The front face carries a thin, clean LED strip. Beneath the windshield, a halo display, a screen positioned in the driver's forward sightline, can push information and, in a detail that sounds absurd until you see it, display messages to people outside the vehicle, animated expressions. The car communicates outward. Under the bodywork, Huawei's dual motor system generates 578 horsepower with a range of 430 miles. The autonomous driving package processes laser-scanned road data in real time. Not just lane keeping and adaptive cruise, but active hazard avoidance, construction navigation, and city traffic management without driver input. The sensor array detects obstacles at 600 meters in complete darkness. The system is built to refuse certain accident scenarios, not just warn you about them. Inside, a single screen spans 35.4 inches across the full dashboard width. The front seats transition into near-flat sleeping positions. The glass roof switches from transparent to opaque with a single press, electrochromic glass responding instantly. All of this at $42,000. In China, the Tesla Model 3 costs that in America. It has a rear window, the NIO ET9, $112,000. Watch this carefully, because it sounds like an exaggeration until you see the footage. Engineers placed a 4-story tower of champagne glasses on the hood of the NIO ET9. Then they drove it over speed bumps. Nothing moved. Not a single glass shifted position. The suspension system, called Skyride, uses hydraulic actuators at each wheel that respond in 1 millisecond. The car doesn't absorb road imperfections after they happen. It anticipates them and neutralizes them before the cabin feels anything. The same system can do something stranger. It can vibrate the entire body of the car in a controlled, rhythmic pattern. Precise enough to shake accumulated snow off the exterior panels without disturbing the passenger compartment. The car sheds weather like a living thing, deciding it's done with winter. At 17 feet long, the ET9 runs on a 900-volt electrical architecture, a specification most American luxury vehicles won't reach for years. At 600 kilowatts of peak charging speed, it recovers 155 miles of range in 5 minutes. The wheel center caps are self-leveling. The NIO logo remains upright regardless of how fast the wheels are spinning, a detail borrowed from Rolls-Royce and then surpassed in execution. Steer-by-wire removes the mechanical linkage between the steering wheel and the front tires entirely. Every input is interpreted digitally, allowing response calibration impossible in a traditional system. Rear-wheel steering means this nearly 18-foot vehicle turns within a radius closer to a compact car. The interior is configured as a 4-seat executive space, a 360-degree rear tray table, seats that recline to 45 degrees, and a 10-liter refrigerated compartment at the rear console. A Mercedes-Maybach S-Class starts above $200,000. A Rolls-Royce Ghost is $350,000. The ET9 outperforms both on suspension technology, charging infrastructure, and interior utility at $112,000. There is no polite way to frame that comparison for the German manufacturers. The Meituo S800, $140,000 to $200,000. This one isn't competing in the electric vehicle segment. It's making a claim on an entirely different category. The Rolls-Royce Phantom starts at $500,000. The Ghost is $350,000. These are not just cars. They are cultural objects, symbols that have held their position at the top of the automotive hierarchy for decades by making the price itself part of the product. The S800, developed through a collaboration between JAC and Huawei, appears to have studied that positioning carefully and then built something designed to dismantle it. At 5.48 meters, nearly 18 feet, the S800 is longer than an S-Class in long wheelbase configuration. The front grille uses vertical elements that catch light in layered depth. The LED array contains thousands of individual points that shift like a surface rather than illuminate like a fixture. The unlock sequence triggers a choreographed light display across the bodywork. The finish is a two-tone purple-silver combination. The wheel design is solid-face chrome. Door sensors respond to hand proximity before contact is made. Propulsion comes from a dual-motor configuration, delivering the output of a large displacement combustion engine silently. The expected autonomy level at launch is Level 3. Legal hands-free operation in approved conditions, allowing occupants to disengage from driving in traffic. The system's emergency response speed exceeds human reaction capability. Interior materials are reported to include real silk carpet. The roof display animates a star field with simulated movement, not static ambient lighting, but a rendered environment overhead. Huawei's Harmony OS integrates the vehicle with the occupant's device ecosystem. Calls transfer between phone and cabin without manual input, and all primary interfaces operate within a unified platform. The rear passenger space is configured for people who conduct business in motion. The legroom is architectural in its proportions. At up to $200,000, the S800 costs less than half a Phantom. It arrives with more technology, comparable material quality, and software infrastructure that British and German manufacturers genuinely cannot match right now. The question this raises isn't really about cars. It's about what happens when an industry that spent decades assuming competition would come from within its own borders suddenly finds the gap closing from somewhere else. Not gradually, but all at once. 5 vehicles across 5 price points, each one targeting a different assumption the Western automotive market has been operating on. That performance requires premium pricing, that luxury requires legacy, that technology leadership requires decades of iteration. Canada can consider all of them. Americans are watching through glass. What changes when the wall comes down, and whether it eventually will, is a separate conversation, but the cars exist. The prices are real, and the distance between what's available and what's accessible is no longer a question of capability. It never really was.